This is the fourth of the Amiga series of the videos. So these are my memories of using the Amiga. I had an Amiga 500 and later I got an Amiga 1200. And this is going to be the second one to focus on the games I used to play and why they were special, or at least they were special to me. So one game I used to play a lot with my with one of my friends, Edward, was called It Came From the Desert. So Edward was or is a year older than me, so I often went to his house after school. He went to a different school to me, and we played It Came From the Desert for hours and hours and hours. It's a game made by a company called Cinemaware, and it had beautiful graphics, incredible sound, and was very, very artistic. And it was also a very good game. So in the game you are, I think you're meant to be some kind of reporter, and you are staying in a town called Lizard Breath, which is a sort of a town in, I guess it's set 1950s in rural US, in a sort of a farming area. So you are solving a mystery, really, which is that strange things have been happening. And so it was an adventure game, really, but with plenty of action elements as well. And the story is that a meteorite hits the farming area where you're staying, and you go to investigate, and the meteorite has caused giant ants to attack the town. It's a very, very well-made game because it has adventure elements, action elements, and strategy as well. And there are very clear phases of the game, and in later phases you are taking control of the town's military and other resources, and you have to use strategy to win the game. But the thing I remember most about it was the graphics and sound were just beautiful, beautiful. I could just listen to the music again and again and again, and often I do on YouTube. Completely different was Golden Axe, which was a side-scrolling fighting game where you could be a man, a woman, or a dwarf, a male dwarf. And the thing I liked about this game was the music was very atmospheric, and it was a game that was difficult, but not overly difficult, so you could make quite a lot of progress through the game. But if you waited around too much, instead of having a time limit, some skeletons would come and attack you, and they were very difficult to defeat, so that was good. And another thing I liked about the game is you could collect magic, so you'd collect magic power, and each character had different magic that they used. I think the man had maybe thunderbolt magic, and the woman had fire, and I forget what the dwarf had. But it was a great game, and not very, very nicely made. And the Amiga's a very powerful computer, so I didn't play the sort of version you'd seen in the arcade, but it would be quite similar to the Amiga, unlike the consoles at the time, which were very underpowered, and you'd sort of see an arcade game and see the console version, and there'd be very little connection. Another game I remember playing quite a lot was Prince of Persia. I probably saw this first on the PC, probably on a PC with maybe a black and white monitor, probably 286 or something like that. But one of the things that was special about Prince of Persia, which is essentially a platform adventure game with fighting and sword fighting, was the movement was so natural, because it had been made by videoing an actor moving and then colouring in the individual frames to make the animated cells and then importing them onto a computer, which is very, very standard technique now. But I think it was probably the first game I saw like that. I liked games that had no ending, games where you built cities and things, and of course the first one I played was SimCity. And it's amazing to think as a young child being interested, that game got me interested in town planning and thinking about budgets and all that sort of stuff you had to do in the game. Don't know why it would have been so appealing to a child, but it really was. And we heard there was, my friends and I heard there was a cheat mode for SimCity. I think if you typed in the word funds, then you would get an extra $10,000, and you could do this so much as you liked. But if you did it 10 times, then there would be an earthquake. So before you'd even start building a city, you'd sit there for hours and hours typing in this word funds to build up a huge amount of money, and then make this sprawling city. And the game was based on a map, and you would put different blocks on the map, and then you would watch them evolve into what they were meant to represent. So you could put a residential block, and over time, if you had an electricity supply and some roads or railways, then people would move in. And you'd see these lovely little animations of the plain green block with the letter R in changing to very nicely done graphics of lots of little houses. It was just such a wonderful game. And then I played more advanced things like Civilization, where you had to do the war side as well. Another game I remember having a lot of fun playing with friends was Moonstone, which is an interesting game, hard to categorise. It's got sword fighting in. The idea is that you're a knight and you have to move around a map, going to different places. So, and for each place completing a battle with some kind of monster, although you can play against the other knights and fight the other knights as well. And I just remember it being very well made, a lot of attention to detail. Even the very small points were really well done, the little bits in between the games, things like that, bits in between the battle. And it was great fun to collect gold, because each layer that you attacked had a store of could have a store of gold, or some gems, or some spells, or some kind of mystical device, or even some weapons. And then you could go to the shop and buy those things in the armory. And you could also gamble as well, which was a lot of fun. Dice gambling, and I remember the animation being done really well. And the music. So Moonstone was a game I played a lot with friends. A game I played a lot on my own was probably Flashback. Flashback is the sequel to Another World. Another World was too difficult for me, really. But Flashback was more my kind of level, although it's still a tough game and I didn't manage to finish it. But both Flashback and Another World had restart points, which helped a lot, and they were platform adventure games, really, but with a lot more depth than you'd usually imagine on a platform game. Beautiful, beautiful graphics, wonderful sound, and in both games you're just trying to find your way home, basically. But Flashback, I remember, was so much fun when you got a job. You would have a job, sort of delivering a package or killing someone. And yeah, I just remember it being such an enjoyable game to play. And another game I played probably quite a lot by myself was Gods, which is a very straightforward platform, but with exquisite graphics and very, very complex networks of switches and buttons to press to try and make doors open or keys to collect. It was a very, very difficult game, and there was a cheat mode, but many versions of the game you couldn't use the cheat mode. I think mine was one you couldn't use the cheat mode because I certainly never got particularly far in it, but it was a fantastic game, a lot of fun. So those are just a handful of games I remember. Please write any games you remember playing, and if they were special to you, why. Write that as a YouTube comment. And if you can, please donate to my cancer fund at www.matthewdons.org. That's MATTHEW, D for Delta, O for Oscar, N for November, S for Sierra.org. Thank you very so much for listening. I hope it's been interesting or fun.